continuing reading chapter 10, Adi-lila, Caitanya Caritamrta, and today is Tuesday, the 19th of August, Ekadashi, Ananda Ekadashi. So Ekadashi Bharat Ki Jai. Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Maha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Adadanastanam Drintiya Idam Yache Puna Puna Srimad Rupa Padam Vojo Dulesh Shyam Janma Janmani Priya Sarupe, Daita Sarupe, Prema Sarupe, Sahajabi Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhuveka Rupe, Tatana Rupe, Swavilasa Rupe, Anapita Chirim Chirat Kurunavartino Kalo Samarpaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Haripurata Sundarada Tikatam Vasitipita Sadakridare Kandare Sparatu Vasachinandana Yam Prabhajantamana Petyam Apetykrityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Matayo Tarabo Benedustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadita Rangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharatram Tatom Mamanasti Katyena Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Naimam Sharanantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila, Pravishta Om, Astau Tarasarashishi Mad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our dear most beloved Nitya Lila, Pravishta Om, Astau Tarasarashishi Mad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And again unto Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and all our divine Rupa Nuga Guru Varg and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vancha kalpa turupyascha kripa sindhavevcha patitanam pavnivyo vaishnavevyo namo namaha. So continuing with the branches of the Chaitanya tree. So there's many examples of different personalities being described, and most of these personalities are described extensively in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So I would beg you all to be familiar with this Chaitanya Bhagavat, and then you can appreciate these devotees more. I will say little bits as we go along, but if I speak too long on each personality, because there are so many personalities we're going to describe, we'll actually never get through this chapter. So I'm just going to very briefly touch on whatever Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is not saying and commenting on about these personalities. So we've come to text 60 of chapter 10, Adi-lila. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda Asvadila Esabar Rasa Sena Shivananda Vistari Kahiba Age Asrabha Ananda. Translation. Srila Shivananda Sen experienced the three features of Sakshat, Avesh, and Avirbhav. So Sakshat is like direct, Avesh is being empowered, and Avirbhav is the appearance directly of Mahaprabhu in this case. It's the birth, Avirbhav, or the direct representation of Mahaprabhu. I shall vividly describe this transcendental, blissful subject. Purport. Srila Shivananda Sen has been described by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj as follows. Shivananda Sen was a resident of Kurmahatta, which is known as Halishhara.
and was a great devotee of the Lord. Kurmahata is where Srivas Thakur returned to his ancestral place in Kurmahata, and it's very close to Halisahara, which is the Shripad of Ishwarapuri. We described this last time. Was a great devotee of the Lord. About 1.5 miles from Kurmahata is another village called Kanchadapad, in which there are Gaur Gopal deities installed by Shivananda Sen, who also established a temple of Krishna Rai that is still existing. Shivananda Sen was the father of Paramananda Sen, who was also known as Puridas or Kavi Kanpur. Paramananda Sen wrote in his Gauraganadesh Deepika 176 that 2 of the gopis of Vrindavan, whose former names were Vira and Duti, combined to become his father. So as I said previously, all of these parikas are Nitya Siddha parikas. They're eternal associates of the Lord, and they all have their counterpart in Krishna Lila, practically all of them that we're talking about. These are not just ordinary conditioned souls that became enlightened by Mahaprabhu's manifest pastimes, but these are his eternal associates that he travels with constantly. This is his road show, so to speak. Mahaprabhu comes with his associates. Srila Shivananda Sen guided all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya who went to Bengal for Jagannath Puri, and he personally bore all the expenses for their journey. This is described in the Caitanya Caritamrta Adi-lila chapter 16, verses 19 through 27. Many examples of this, of Shivananda Sen organizing the party. They would travel, as many as 200 devotees would travel together from Bengal down the sometimes dangerous roads. They had to go through many Muslim toll gates, which all had to be accounted for and paid for, and papers had to be shown, etc. It wasn't just a simple journey at all. They had to take boats in some places. So this journey is very beautifully described by Vrindavan Das Thakur, again in his Chaitanya Bhagavat. He personally bore all the expenses for their journey. He had to pay in all the toll gates, etc., and look after them in their prasadam and their lodgings. This is described in Caitanya Caritamrta Adi-lila chapter 16, but I said that. Srila Shivananda Sen had 3 sons named Chaitanya Das, Ram Das, and Paramananda. As mentioned above, the last son later became Kavi Kanpur and wrote the Gauraganadesh Deepika. His spiritual master is Srinath Pandit, who was Shivananda's priest. Due to Vasudev Datta's lavish spending, Shivananda Sen was engaged to supervise his expenditures. Shivananda Sen actually experienced Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's features of Sakshat, Avesh, and Avirvav. He once took along a dog while on his way to Jagannath Puri, and it is described in the Antya-lila, 1st chapter, that this dog later attained salvation by his association. This is a very beautiful pastime. It's like I was describing the distinction of Bharatvarsha or India. No animals generally are killed. For example, there are thousands and thousands of monkeys that harass the residents of Vrindavan and Govardhan and Radhakund and so many of the places in the Holy Dham. The local people would not think to kill them and reduce the population. And similarly with dogs. There are many dogs, street dogs, and they're fed regularly by the locals. The locals will feed the dogs. There's a very nice relationship, and the wandering cows around. All animals are protected as a rule in India. So this dog, it followed the parikrama party. A large parikrama party just grew attached to Shiva, and Shivananda Sen would feed the dog. Even one time he came to a boat, they had to cross a river, and the boatman refused to take the dog on his boat. And Shivananda had to pay triple or quadruple the price of any other passenger to just get the dog onto the boat. And he would always attend to its prasadam every night. But one night he didn't get to do that. And when he returned late after finishing his payments at the toll gate, he couldn't find the dog, and no one had fed the dog. And in the morning he sent 10, 12 men to search for the dog, and still they couldn't find the dog. And Shivananda Sen was very unhappy about that. But then when they arrived in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that same dog was being fed green coconut by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying to the dog, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. And the dog in its own way was chanting Hare Krishna like this. And then the next day, it's commented, no one ever saw that dog again. In other words, they all assumed that dog had gone back to a higher birth, had left its body. But pastimes like this are all described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, very beautiful pastimes. And this pastime that I'm describing now is described in the Caitanya Caritamrta later on in this. Hang on, no, first chapter, that this dog later attained salvation by his association. When Srila Raghunath Das, who later became Raghunath Das Goswami, fled his paternal home to join Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his father wrote a letter to Shivananda Sen to get information about it, because they all lived in the very close area around Panihati and this district. All the Bengali Vaishnavas, they all gathered in these common locations. So Raghunath Das's father was very concerned when Raghunath had escaped his family home and assumed that he was in the party of Shivananda Sen, but he wasn't. Raghunath Das went by the side roads so he would avoid the guards, etc., and his father catching up with him. Getting information. Shivananda Sen supplied him the details for which he asked, and later Raghunath Das Goswami's father sent some servants and money with to Shivananda Sen to take care of Raghunath Das Goswami. So of course Raghunath Das is leaving his very wealthy house to take shelter of Mahaprabhu in Puri, and his father is very concerned for his welfare. His father Govardhan Majumdar and his uncle Hiranya Majumdar. He was the only heir to their ancestral property, so he'd left. So Govardhan Majumdar would send regularly. He sent 2 Brahmins to cook for him to Jagannath Puri, and he sent money, which Raghunath Das would use to feed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas for a couple of years, and then he stopped and would return the money back to his family. So Raghunath Das was put in a very compromised situation. He was renounced from birth because he had the association of Haridas Thakur. So this is some of the pastime of Raghunath Das here mentioned. Once Sri Shivananda Sen invited Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home and fed him so sumptuously that the Lord felt indigestion and was somewhat sick. But this became known to Shivananda's eldest son, Chaitanya Das, who gave the Lord all kinds of food that would help his digestion. And thus Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. This is described in Adi-lila 10th chapter, verses 142 to 151. As I said previously, these references are invaluable. If we can write down these references in the different pastimes, it'll be very helpful for our familiarity with all these beautiful pastimes that consist or constitute the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are trying to immerse ourselves in the mood and life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore to appreciate the truths, the esoteric truths that he's actually giving. We're trying to Caitanya Caritamrta. Caritamrta means the character, the life and character of Mahaprabhu. So this is the life and character that is being described, and we can understand a person by the association, by the company that he keeps. So by describing these great personalities, we can understand Mahaprabhu's pastimes and moods and the environment a lot more effectively. Once while going to Jagannath Puri, all the devotees had to stay underneath the tree without the shelter of a house or even a shed, and Nityananda became very angry, as if he were greatly disturbed by hunger. Shivananda Sain had been held up at the toll gate by the Muslim guards. It doesn't take 5 minutes to get through with 100 or 200 or 300 Vaishnavas crossing the toll gate, so Shivananda Sain had to know how to speak and pacify the guards and bribe them and pay them, etc. Just to get, it's exactly the same as it was today. You have to bribe people all the time, policemen, etc. So it was the same in those days. You had to bribe the Muslim or Turkish guards at the gates to continue the journey. So Shivananda Sain was held up and couldn't easily, quickly make the accommodation facilities available. Thus he cursed Shivananda's sons to die. Shivananda's wife was very much aggrieved at this and began to cry. She very seriously thought that since her sons had been cursed by Nityananda Prabhu, certainly they would die. This is Shivananda Sain's wife, a great Vaishnavi. When Shivananda later returned and saw his wife crying, he said, "Why are you crying? Let us all die if Sri Nityananda Prabhu desires." Shivananda's nishta, his faith in Nityananda, were through the roof. They were completely, he was understanding the divine potency of Nityananda as he understood the divine potency of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By Mahaprabhu's mercy, they all understood absolutely who he was, his real identity. So Nityananda Baladev, because later on it's described that he sees Nityananda with his club and plough. He sees him with both of these articles of his personality. When Shivananda returned to Sri Nityananda and saw him, the Lord kicked him very severely, complaining that he was very hungry and asked why he had not arranged for his food. This is a wonderful pastime of an avadut, and it shouldn't be misunderstood, as it was misunderstood by the sons of Shivananda Sain at the time. But we should, if we have absolute nishta in these personalities, their supreme identities, you can post that picture now. So we're posting a picture of this pastime on our WhatsApp thread if you want to see this picture. Such is the behavior of the Lord with his devotees. This actually is a most affectionate and intimate. Nityananda felt familiar enough with Shivananda Sain to kick him. He felt that familiarity, and Shivananda Sain reciprocates in a very beautiful way. Nityananda Prabhu behaved like an ordinary hungry man, as if completely dependent on the arrangements of Shivananda Sain. This is the key, that Nityananda was acting like an ordinary person, as if Shivananda Sain was taking care of him. Nityananda had many pastimes, Nityananda Avadut, like a child. He would be acting like a child in the courtyard of Srivasangam. He would even take the breast milk of Srivas Thakur's wife, Malini, who previously had been Ambika, the maidservant, feeding the wet nurse of Krishna in Krishna's pastimes. So Nityananda had this mood sometimes of being very childlike. So he was exhibiting this childlike impatience at being hungry, and also he was concerned for the inconvenience of all the other Vaishnavas. So he performed this pastime very dramatically, and Shivananda Sain completely went along with it and totally adored it, but his wife was disturbed. A nephew of Shivananda Sain's, called Srikanta, left the company in protest of Nityananda Prabhu's curse and went directly to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri, where the Lord pacified him. This is described in the Adi-lila also. On that occasion, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed his toe to be sucked by Puridas. This is later on, when all the devotees arrived, and Shivananda Sain arrives with his son Puridas, Puridas. And Puridas was, as a child, lying at the foot of Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu puts his toe into his mouth. And Puridas, of course, is Kavi Kanpur, who writes with the most blissful, sweetest eloquence and imagery in his Ananda Vrindavan Champu in particular, and many of his literatures, very ornamental language, very beautiful, full of sweet poetry. It was by the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he could immediately compose Sanskrit verses. During the misunderstanding with Shivananda's family, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered his personal attendant Govinda to give them all the remnants of his food. This is described in Adi-lila chapter 12, verse 53. So Shivananda Sain, his wife, and his 3 sons, they actually were enumerated with mountains of Mahaprasad from Govinda Das, the servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time, in the Gambhira. This is in Puri. Text 61.
Shivananda Upasaka Tanra Parikara Putra Britya Adhikare Chaitanya Kinkara.
Translation. The sons, servants, and family members of Shivananda Sain consisted of a sub-branch. They were all sincere devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That means they didn't know anything else except Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we should understand, in context, this was exceptional for that time, because this is the advent of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu's teachings had not become familiar in the world, and practically no one really knew who he was. Who was prepared to suddenly accept another? Mahaprabhu, when he first appears, he's not understood to be Sri Krishna. He's only understood by a few very personal devotees to be that Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one else could understand him, but Shivananda Sain was one of those people who could understand his true identity, and this was exceptional. All these parikars of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they all understood his supreme identity right from the very beginning. So their nishta was completely intact, fully of who Mahaprabhu was. Text 62.
Chaitanya Dasa Ramadasa Ara Karnapura Tina Putra Shivananda Prabhu Bhakta Sur.
The 3 sons of Shivananda Sain, named Chaitanya Das, Ram Das, and Karnapur, were all heroic devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Purport. Chaitanya Das, the eldest son of Shivananda Sain, wrote a commentary on Krishna Caritamrta, which was later translated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his paper Sajjana Toshini. According to expert opinion, Chaitanya Das was the author of the book Caitanya Caritamrta. Caitanya Caritamrta is different from Caitanya Caritamrta, of course. Also known as Caitanya Caritamrta. So this Caitanya Charita was sometimes previously called as Caitanya Caritamrta, which was written in Sanskrit. The author was not Kavi Kanpur, in fact, as is generally supposed. This is the opinion of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So there's a conflict of opinion amongst the Vaishnava scholars as to actually who wrote this Chaitanya Charita, because there was no internet, of course, so there was no collective dialogue amongst the Vaishnavas except for glorification of the different granthas and scriptures. So many facts and so on were not clearly brought to light at the time. It's only in posterity, historically, that we understand who was actually writing these books and who was not writing those books. It is stated in the Gaura-Ganadeshtipika 145 that the 2 famous parrots named Daksha and Vichakshana in Krishna Lila became the elder brothers of Kavi Kanpur, namely Chaitanya Das and Ram Das. Karnapur, the 3rd son, who was also known as Paramananda Puri or Puri Das, was initiated by Srinath Pandit, who was a disciple of Sri Advaita Prabhu, so he's in that line. Karnapur wrote many books that are important in Vaishnava literature, such as Ananda Vrindavan Champu, Alanka Kastuba, Gaura Ganadeshtipika, and the great epic Chaitanya Chandradoy Nataka. He was born in the year 1448 Shakabda, AD 1526. So Mahaprabhu leaves this world in 1534. So this is 8 years before Mahaprabhu leaves this world. So he associated with Mahaprabhu by drinking the nectar from his lotus foot. And when he was a very young child, there's another pastime when Mahaprabhu is trying to induce him to chant Hare Krishna. He's telling him again and again in the company of the devotees to chant Hare Krishna, but he's not. Swarup Damodar is saying he's chanting Hare Krishna in his mind. He will not reveal it publicly like that. And then a few days later, Mahaprabhu requested him to say some poetry, 8-year-old boy, and he beautifully was reciting Sanskrit verses that he spontaneously just composed in his mind in response to Mahaprabhu, demonstrating his great genius and his great ability to compose glorification of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Sanskrit, 8 years old. He continually wrote books for 10 years, from 1488 to 1498. So these are in the Shakabda years that it's describing here. So it would be 1540 something and 1550. You can work out the difference with mathematics. Text 63. Shri Vallabhasena Arasena Shrikanta Shivananda Sambandhe Prabhu Bhakta Ekanta. Translation. Sri Vallabha Sen and Shrikanta Sen were also sub-branches of Shivananda Sen, for they were not only his nephews but also unalloyed devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These are the backbone, these are carrying the conceptions of Mahaprabhu into the world, especially in Bengal, where these truths are impressed within the Bengali Vaishnavas there. Purport. When Lord Nityananda Prabhu rebuked Shivananda Sen on the way to Puri, these two nephews of Shivananda Sen left the company as a protest and went to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. The Lord could understand the feelings of the boys, and he asked his personal assistant Govinda to supply them prasadam until the party of Shivananda arrived. During the Rath Yatra Sankirtan festival, these two brothers were members of the party led by Mukunda, because there were 7 parties. Mahaprabhu split the 7 parties to dance in the Rath Yatra festival, and these two brothers were in a particular, the party led by Mukunda, beautiful singer that we've already described. In the Gauraganesh Deepika 174, it is said that the gopi whose name was Katyani appeared as Shrikanta Sen. So these are all Nitya Siddha Parikars. Text 64. Prabhu Priya Govinanda Mahabhagavata Prabhu Caitanya Adi Shri Govinda Datta. Translation. Govindananda and Govinda Datta, the 25th and 26th branches of the tree, were performers of kirtan in the company of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Govinda Datta was the principal singer in Lord Chaitanya's kirtan party. Purport. Govinda Datta appeared in the village of Sukachara, near Gadadha, near Kadaha. Kadaha is very close to Sridhar. Is it the town? We'll come to that town. But Kadaha is the place near where Purandara had a home, and Nityananda stayed with his 2 wives, Janavamata and Vasudha. They stayed in Kadaha, which is a very famous location to visit. Sri Vijay Das, the 27th branch, another of the Lord's chief singers, gave the Lord many books written by hand. Formerly, there were no printing presses or printing books. All books were handwritten. Precious books were kept in manuscript form in temples and other important places, and anyone who was interested in a book had to copy it by hand. Vijay Das was a professional writer who copied many manuscripts and gave them to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Caitanya Bhagavat, it's described that one time there was a kirtan, a wonderful ecstatic kirtan, and then they all lay in a grassy area after the kirtan in exhaustion from the kirtan. And Mahaprabhu's hand fell right on the chest of Vijay. And Vijay was lying there and he was looking at this hand on his chest of Mahaprabhu, and suddenly became filled with jewels and all kinds of just amazing colors, because Vijay is an artist, his mind is like that. And he suddenly saw this hand in just the most incredible way we can describe. And then he was about to shout out and the hand came up and covered his mouth. And then he said, Mahaprabhu whispered in his ear, don't tell anyone what you've just seen. So Vijay, he jumps up and he shouts and shouts. And he starts running around and running around in complete ecstasy. And it's as if he goes mad for 3 days. He doesn't eat, doesn't take any prasad, doesn't speak to anybody, just shouts and shouts, Gauranga, 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 like this. And he's just running. He's had this tremendous vision of Mahaprabhu. The hand was right resting on his chest. And he's heard the instruction, don't speak about it. So he's not speaking about it, but it's erupting out of his body, what he's actually seen. So this is a beautiful pastime, again described by Vrindavan Das Thakur in his Caitanya Bhagavat. Text 66.
Ratna Bahubali Prabhu Tuliya Tanranam Akincha Prabhura Priya Krishna Dasanam.
Translation: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Vijay Das the name Ratna Bahu, jewel-handed, because of this pastime. He saw the jeweled hand of Mahaprabhu. So he gave him the name Ratna Bahu, because he copied many manuscripts for him. This is one reason, copying the manuscripts. But also he saw Mahaprabhu's hand, jeweled hand. The 28th branch was Krishnadas, who was very dear to the Lord. He was known as Akinchana Krishnadas. Akinchana means one who possesses nothing in this world, or one who knows that everything in this world belongs to Krishna. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was completely Akinchana, even though he had opulent temples all over the world, opulent conveyances and so on, and so much material wealth. Still, he knew that not a drop of it belonged to him. He took not a paisa for supporting his family members or anything of that nature. Text 67.
Kola Vaishya Shrita Prabhu Priya Dasa Yan Hasane Prabhu Kare Nitya Parihasa.
The 29th branch was Sridhar, a trader in banana tree bark. He was a very dear servant of the Lord. On many occasions, the Lord played jokes on him. Purport: Sridhar was a poor brahmana who made a living by selling banana tree bark to be made into cups. Most probably he had a banana tree garden and collected leaves, skin and pulp of the banana trees to sell daily in the market. You can go to see Kolavecha Sridhar Maharaj's place where he had his kutia, which is just north of the Mayapur Chandradoy temple, and you go past the Yog Pit and past the Chaitanya Mat, and you come to the Chankazi's place, and just around the corner from the Chankazi's place is the Jagannath temple. There's a beautiful Jagannath temple. If you walk to that Jagannath temple, just beside there's a small path, and you go down that small path and you come to this Sridhar Angan, this sitting place of Sridhar. And it's actually located, and there are many, many banana trees around his place. So this is what's being described, that he would have collected the leaves of these banana trees, etc. He spent 50% of his income to worship the Ganges, and the balance he used for his subsistence. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started his civil disobedience movement in defiance of the Qazi, Sridhar danced in jubilation, because Sridhar's place is close to the Qazi's place, as I've just described. The Lord used to drink water from his water jug. He had a water jug that was very cracked and sort of broken, and dented, very old. You wouldn't even want to look at it, basically. But Sridhar, Kolovich Sridhar, was a very impoverished Brahmin, and he would drink from that water pot. And Mahaprabhu drank from this water pot. And there's famous pastimes about him drinking from this pot. Sridhar would sit in this broken down place where he lived and chant very loudly all night long. And the residents around would think that it was because he was hungry that he was chanting so loudly. All night he would just be in ecstasy. And finally he's called into the company of Mahaprabhu during the Satpahariya pastimes, when Mahaprabhu chants for 21 hours, and Mahaprabhu reveals his real identity originally as Sudama Brahmana. And he's also an eternal Gopal of Nityananda Prabhu. He's the 12th Gopal of Nityananda. There are 12 Gopals, and Kolovich Sridhar is the last one. Every year he went to see Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. According to Kavi Kanpur, Sridhar was a cowherd boy of Vrindavan, whose name was Kusumasava. In his Gora Ganadesh Deepika, it is stated, Kola Vechataya Katyaya Pandita Sridhar Dvija, Asid Vraja Hasya Kora Yo Namne Kusumasava. So he had actually two identities. He was the Sudama Brahmana, as well as he's an eternal associate, cowherd boy, Kusumasava, who's one of the Dwadasa Gopals of Baladev Prabhu. The cowherd boy named Kusumasava in Krishna Lila later became Kolavecha Sridhar during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Lila at Navadvip. So there are many pastimes there described in Chaitanya Bhagavat again. Text 68.
Prabhu Yanra Nityalaya Toda Moksha Phala Yanra Puta Lagupatra Prabhu Pila Chala.
Every day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu jokingly snatched fruits, flowers and pulp from Sridhar and drank from his broken iron pot. So it's described he would always try and make the price so ridiculously low that Sridhar couldn't even afford to sell them to him. In the end, he would just say, take it, take whatever you want, but don't bother me. Don't keep approaching me and harassing me like this. Just take whatever you want. And Mahaprabhu would. He would take and he would relish his mother's cooking of those banana space that he took from Sridhar. Text 69.
Prabhu Ati Piriya Dasa Bhagavana Pandita Yanradeha Krishna Purva Hoile Adishtata.
The 13th branch of was Bhagavan Pandit. He was an extremely dear servant of the Lord, but even previously he was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, who always kept the Lord within his heart. So this is the nature of these Nitya Siddha Parikas. They also have their Krishna counterpart, as well as taking birth with Mahaprabhu. So all exceptionally extraordinary special personalities. Text 70.
Jagadisha Pandit Ara Harinya Hiranya Mahashaya Yara Kripa Koile Palya Prabhu Dayamai.
The 31st branch was Jagadish Pandit, and the 32nd was Hiranya Mahashaya, unto whom Lord Chaitanya in his childhood showed causeless mercy. For Jagadish Pandit was formerly a great dancer in Krishna Lila and was known as Chandrahasa. Regarding Hiranya Pandit, it is said that once when Lord Nityananda, decorated with valuable jewels, was staying at his home, all night long a great thief attempted to plunder these jewels, but was unsuccessful. Later he came to Nityananda Prabhu and surrendered to him. So these two brothers cooked rice, etc., on Ekadashi day for their Thakurji of Vishnu in their home. And Nimai, as a small child, 4 or 5 at the time, would not stop crying and told his father, Jagadish Mishra, his father was saying, "Why are you crying? What do you want?" Everyone was chanting, giving him everything. He said he would only be satisfied when he could take the prasadam from Jagadish and Hiranya Mahashaya. So Jagadish Pandit, in a very submissive mood, went all the way across the town, because it was quite a long way, to the house of Jagadish and Hiranya Mahashai, and begged for their rice preparations on Ekadashi, the Vishnu Mahaprasad from their altar. And they so happily gave it. They heard that Nimai was wanting it and requesting it, so they made it all in pots beautifully. And Jagadish Pandit, Jagannath Mishra, Jagadish Mishra, Jagannath Mishra, took those remnants back to young Nimai, who honored them with relish. So this was the mercy that he gave to these two brothers at that time. And then the pastime is being described here, when Nityananda, he would roam around in Navadvip in a very opulent way in the town of it's not Shantipur. There's two towns, Shantipur and another town sounds like it there. Not the place of Advaitacharya, but another place. Forgotten the name of the place. It begins with S too, sounds like Shantipur. But anyway, there is a town of the goldsmiths. And we've already discussed this pastime, I think. And the goldsmiths were Kayashta caste, and they were ostracized by the Brahmins because they would lend money, and there became some disputes. So the Brahmins were not favorable to them. Shantipur and forgotten the time. Anyway, all Nityananda Prabhu, he stayed there. Udaran Thakur was one of those devotees that became his disciple. And those gold merchants, they gave Nityananda many gold ornaments and jewels. And Nityananda, he would travel around in very beautiful silk cloths and beautiful decorated turbans and beautiful jewelry and ornaments. And a thief, Chandidas, he noticed this one day, and he called all his dacoit friends, and they decided they would rob Nityananda of all these jewels, because they were worth crores in those days. So they attempted to come to this house of Hiranya Mahashai, and on the first night they came, they heard a kirtan was in the house. So they thought, we'll wait until the kirtan's finished, and then we'll go after, when they're all asleep. But by Yogamaya's arrangement, they all went fast asleep. Then they woke up in the morning and it was broad daylight, and they thought, no, we can't go and do our devious thievery now in the broad daylight, we'll come back another day. So they offered their food to Durga Devi, begging for her mercy in their exploit of robbing, and came back on the second night. The second night, they were sitting outside the home in the forest, observing, and they saw these enormous guards were walking around the house, looking like Vaikuntha Vasis, huge personalities, were walking around, guarding the house of Hiranya Mahashai. So they all became intimidated by that and crept away. But then they were determined. And the third night, they came back again. And they were hiding again, and they were planning their robbery. And then that night became very overcast and black clouds. And a devastating thunderstorm occurred. And they were all entirely drenched. And hailstones were pouring on them, hurting them, the thieves. And at that time, the thieves, they all went blind in this hailstorm, this thunderstorm. They couldn't see where they were going. And they were tripping over, stumbling over logs, breaking their legs in ditches and so on, and completely disorientated. And finally, this Chandidas, who was the head of the dacoits, he was lying there amidst all this pain and suffering and this hailstones beating on his body. He suddenly thought, this is the third time we've come to this house. Each time we've come, we've been foiled by these dramatic obstructions. This person must belong, as the local populace are saying, he must be a divine personality. And he was thinking like this, and then he started to pray to Nityananda. And at that time, the rain and hail immediately stopped. And Chandidas immediately had this realization from the core of his heart that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He had it fully flood his consciousness. And he comes staggering up to the house of Hiranya Maharshi, and he opens the door in complete ecstasy and trance-like state, totally bewildered by this divine apparition that's taken place in his head. And Nityananda sitting there in all his glory with his parikas, and they say, "Oh, Chandidas, you seem to have seen something very wonderful." Chandidas can't speak. He's just in ecstasy, and he prostrates himself at the lotus feet of Nityananda. And Nityananda places his feet on his head and said, "Yes, now you should rob the people of their material desires. Now forever you should actually gift this understanding of who is my glorious brother, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and encourage the local populace to chant Hare Krishna." And this night it's described that this Chandidas, who was the head of all the dacoits, a massive demon, began chanting the Sankirtan with all of Nityananda's parikas. And then later on in his life, it's described that he performed many wonderful services to Nityananda Prabhu. So this is what's being referred to here. And this pastime is described at the end of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in the last Antya Kand section. Text 71. E dui gara Prabhu ekadasi dine, Vishnur nive dak magi kaile apane, Naivadya magi kaile apane. In their two houses, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu baked food on the Ekadashi day and personally ate it. That's the pastime already described. The injunction to fast on Ekadashi is especially meant for devotees, not Krishna. Krishna doesn't fast from grains. Why should he fast from grains? So we offer grains, anna, rice, to Thakurji today. On Ekadashi, there are no restrictions regarding food that may be offered to the Lord or the Vishnu deity. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the food of Lord Vishnu in his ecstasy as Vishnu Tattva. So Prabhupada qualifies it that he was not taking that Vishnu Tattva Prasad as Mahaprabhu, as the servant of Radhika, as the sadhak. He was taking it in his Vishnu aspect. Prabhu Pudaya Dui Purushottam Sanjaya Vikarane Dui Shishya Dui Mahashaya. Translation. The 33rd and 34th branches were the two students of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu named Purushottam and Sanjaya. They were stalwart students in grammar. They were very great personalities. These two students were inhabitants of Navadvip and were the Lord's first companions in the Sankirtan movement. According to Chaitanya Bhagavat, Purushottam Sanjay was the son of Mukunda Sanjay, but the author of Sri Caitanya Caritamrta has clarified that Purushottam and Sanjay were two, not one. So sometimes, I've described before, the descriptions of these personalities, there's some Vaishishti, there's some difference, specialities there. Text 73. Vanamali Pandit Saka Vihyate Vijagate Sonara Musala Hale Hala Dekila Prabhudhate. Translation. Vanamali Pandit, the 35th branch of the tree, was very much celebrated in this world. He saw a golden club and plough in the hands of the Lord. And also, I described previously this other personality also had that same darshan. I think that was Shivananda Sen had that darshan. These are all described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Purport. Banamali Pandit saw Lord Chaitanya in the ecstasy of Balaram. This is vividly described in Chaitanya Bhagavat Antyakant, chapter 9. Text 74. Sri Caitanya Adi-lila Buddhimantakan Ajanma Agnikara
Tenhyo Sevaka Pradhan.
Translation: the 36th branch, Buddhimanta was extremely dear to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was always prepared to carry out the Lord's orders, and therefore he was considered to be a chief servant of the Lord. Purport: Sri Buddhimanta Khan was one of the inhabitants of Navadvip. He was very rich, and it is he who arranged for the marriage of Lord Chaitanya with Vishnu Priya, the daughter of Sanatan Mishra. This is Mahaprabhu's second marriage. His first marriage was Krishna Priya, second marriage Vishnu Priya, who was the priest of the local zamindar. He personally defrayed all the expenditures for the marriage ceremony. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was attacked by Vayu Vyadi, derangement of the air within the body, Buddhimanta Khan paid for all requisite medicines and treatments to cure the Lord. He was the Lord's constant companion in the Kirtan movement. He collected ornaments for the Lord when he played the part of the goddess of fortune in the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya. He also went to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was staying in Jagannath Puri. Buddhimanta Khan is described previously when we do Navadvip Parikrama, and we go to Harihara Ketra, and after Harihara Ketra we take a left and we come to Suvarna Bihar before Nrsimhapalli, and in that Suvarna Bihar is an ancient fortress. Many millions of years ago this fortress was there, and there was a great king called Shivananda Sen. Shivananda Sen? I think it's Shivananda Sen, or maybe anyway, a particular Sen was the king. Suvarna Sen, perhaps. Suvarna Sen was the king. And he was performing many yagyas and sacrifices for material opulences, and performing karma yoga, in other words. But somehow, by the fortune, Narad came to him and told him the truth about life, and that all his material wealth and karma were absolutely useless. And that night, Suvarna Sen had a dream, and in that dream he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his heart melts. And in the morning, he just simply wants to become a part of Mahaprabhu's pastime, because his palace was in Navadvip Dham Mandal. This is why Narada Muni went there, to his place, because it's very close to Harihara Ketra, and it's in the Navadvip Mandal. So this was why Narada Muni visited him. So he had this vision of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And then there's a voice saying, you will come again in my manifest pastimes as Nimai of Pandit, and you will be my great servitor. So this is Buddhimanta Khan. Again, another Nityasiddha Parika. Suvarna Bihar, so Suvarna Sen was his name. It's a very beautiful place we can visit today. Always has many cows. There's a beautiful mutt there that is a Chaitanya inaugurated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and now it's taken care of by Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj's disciples are there looking after that mutt. Translation. Sorry, I didn't read the Bengali. Text 75.
Garuda Pandit Laya Sri Nama Mangala Nama Bale Vishwayandra Nakarila Bala.
Garuda Pandit, the 37th branch of the tree, always engaged in chanting the auspicious name of the Lord. Because of the strength of this chanting, even the effects of poison could not touch him. Purport. Garuda Pandit was once bitten by a poisonous snake, but the snake's poison could not affect him because of his chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Also, his name is Garuda. All the snakes are afraid of Garuda. So somehow he got the name Garuda Pandit because there's something connecting him with Garuda. So we can see in the Gauraganeshtipika, we can look up Garuda Pandit and see his identity. So again, uncommon personalities. And there were thousands, hundreds and hundreds of these associates with Mahaprabhu. Text 76.
Gopinatha Singha Eka Caitanya Dasa Akrura Bali Prabhu Yanra Kaile Parihasa.
Translation. Gopinath Singha, the 38th branch of the tree, was a faithful servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord jokingly addressed him as Akrura. Purport. Actually, he was Akrura, as stated in text 117 of the Gora Ganadesh Tipika. So again, these are all the Nityasiddha Parikas of Mahaprabhu. Text 77.
Bhagavati Devananda Vakrishvara Kripate Bhagavater Bhakti Artha Paile Prabhu Haite.
Devananda Pandit was a professional reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam, but by the mercy of Vakrishvara Pandit and the grace of the Lord, he understood the devotional interpretation of the Bhagavatam. Purport. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Khand, chapter 21, it is stated that Devananda Pandit and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's father, Visharda, lived in the same village. Devananda Pandit was a professional reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not like his interpretation of it. In the present town of Navadvip, which was formerly known as Kulia, Lord Chaitanya showed such mercy to him that he gave up the Mayavadi interpretation of Srimad Bhagavatam and learned how to explain Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of bhakti. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is Brihaspati previously, who is also like a Mayavad, and Devananda Pandit's father was born in the same village as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So these two Mayavads were there together. Formerly, when Devananda was expounding the Mayavadi interpretation, Srivas Thakur was once present at his meeting, and he began to cry. It's described by my Gurudev that Devananda Pandit was describing from the 10th canto, verse like Baharpitanata Barabaput Karaneo Karanikaram from Venugit. And Srivas Thakur, he heard this verse from the street and he came in to listen to some beautiful 10th canto Harigata. But as soon as he heard this verse, Baharpitanata Barabaput Karaneo Karanika, he went into extreme ecstasy and was rolling on the ground. And Devananda Pandit, who was like a Mayavad, and his students were like that also, couldn't tolerate this exhibition of spontaneous love. So they picked him up and they put him on the street. They threw him out of that assembly. And when Srivas Thakur came to his senses on the street, he was very unhappy that he'd been rejected from that assembly. And he dusted himself off and went home, but he was not happy in his heart at that. So this was great offense by Devananda Pandit. And for this Mahaprabhu was extremely angry. But by the I'll read on. Srivas Thakur was once present in his meeting and he began to cry. Devananda's students drove him away. Some days later, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that way, and when he met Devananda, he chastised him severely because of his Mayavada interpretation of Srimad Bhagavatam. At that time, Devananda had little faith in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an incarnation of Lord Krishna. It's very easy for us reading these descriptions and to believe in Mahaprabhu, but at the time, when just a general person is suddenly described as being that supreme person, if you don't have sufficient sukriti and adhikar to see the nature of that identity, why should you accept him as the Supreme Lord? He didn't accept him as the Supreme Lord. He didn't have faith in Mahaprabhu at that time. So Mahaprabhu chastised him heavily. At that time, Devananda had very little faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an incarnation of Lord Krishna. But one night, sometime later, Vakrishra Pandit was a guest at his house. And when he explained the science of Krishna, Devananda was convinced about the identity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the mercy aspect of Vakrishra Pandit. Vakrishra Pandit, this great devotee we've already described, one of the main branches of this Chaitanya tree, was a friend of Devananda from a long time. So he preached to him about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and inspired in his heart the real identity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So for this, Devananda took it to heart completely and begged Mahaprabhu's mercy when he next met him. And Mahaprabhu explained, you must go and beg from Srivas Thakur the mercy for the aparad that you caused to him, which he did. And today, in that same place, we have our Devananda Gaudiya Math, which is named after Devananda receiving the mercy from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this Devananda Gaudiya Math is there in Koladweep. Koladweep is that place of aparad Bhanjan Vat, where all the sins will be easily forgiven. And this is one of the examples of the sins of Devananda was forgiven because of the mercy of Vakrashra Pandit. Understand? Thus, he was induced to explain Srimad Bhagavatam according to the Vaishnava understanding. In Gaura Ganadesh Deepika 106, it is described that he was formerly Bhaguri Muni, the Shaba Pandit who recited Vedic mantras in the house of Nanda Maharaj. So these are all these great personalities. Even though they were in Krishna Lila, like Akrura, for example, there were some difficulties that Akrura had in his relationship with Krishna, in a sense, about the Shamantaka jewel that was stolen, and he was implicated in that, and eventually he had to leave Dwarka because he's a Dwarkavasi. He was a Mathuravasi, transferred to Dwarka, and had to leave Dwarka and resided in Matila for about 7 or 8 years due to his implication in politics in Dwarka over the Shamantaka jewel. So all these explanations are there. So text 78 and 79. Kandavasi Mukunda Dasa Sri Raghunandan Narahari Dasa Chiranjiva Solachana Esaba Mahashaka Chaitanya Kripa Dharma Prema Phala Phula Kare Yahan Tanhadana. Translation. Sri Kandavasi Mukunda and his son Raghunandan this is Mukunda Shakara, who was in the town near Kadaha. So these Kadaha Vasis, they call it. Sri Kadaha Mukunda and his son Raghunandan were the 39th branch of the tree. Narahari was the 40th, Chiranjeev the 41st, and Sulochan the 42nd. They were all big branches of the all-merciful tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They distributed the fruits and flowers of love of Godhead anywhere and everywhere. Purport. Sri Mukunda Das was the son of Narayan Das and the eldest brother of Narahari Sakara. His second brother's name was Madhava Das, and his son's name was Raghunandan Das, the son of Mukunda Das. It wasn't Raghunandan Das. Descendants of Raghunandan Das still live 4 miles west of Katwa in the village of Shrikand. This was the village I was trying to remember just previously. Shrikand is the place of Narahari Shaka, the place of Mukunda Shaka, the place of Raghunandan, the place of Chiranjeev, the place of Sulochan. They all come from this village of Shrikand, which is close to Katwa, which is quite close to Kardaha. So they're called Kardaha Vasis. That's the district name. So from the village of Shrikand. In Shrikand, in the village, they've got like a place where the samadhis of all these great devotees are all in a group, in a samadhi location. And they have the temple of the deity that took Raghunandan's offering when he was a child, when you see the half-eaten laddu in his hand, that Madan Gopal. And they have the Bhajan Kuti of Narahari Sakar, who was in Krishna Lila, Madhu, what's his name? Madhumani, a great, maybe it's mentioned here, I don't think it is. Madhumani. Madhumani, yes. Madhumati. This is her name, Madhumati. Raghunandan had one son named Kanai and had two sons, Madana Rai, who was a disciple of Narahari Thakur and Vamsivardhan. It is estimated that at least 400 men descended in this dynasty. All their names are recorded in the village of Shrikand. In Gauraganadish Deepika 175, it is stated that the gopi whose name was Vrindadevi was Mukunda Das. So this is Mukunda that we celebrate, the Vaidya, the doctor we talked about the other day, lived in Shrikand village and was very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His wonderful devotion of love for Sri Krishna is described in Caitanya Caritamrta Adi-lila chapter 15. It is stated in the Bhakti Ratnakara 8 way that Raghunandan used to serve the deity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Narahari Das Thakur was a very famous devotee, even before Mahaprabhu. Lochan Das Thakur was celebrated author of Chaitanya Mangal, was his disciple. In the Chaitanya Mangal, it is stated that Gadadhar Das and Narahari Thakur were extremely dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but there was no specific statement regarding the inhabitants of the village of Shrikand. This village is very famous today, we can visit. Chiranjeev and Sulochan were both residents of Shrikand, where their descendants are still living. Of Chiranjeev's two sons, the elder Ramchandra Kaviraj was a disciple of Srinivasacharya and an intimate associate of Narottam Das Thakur, the younger son of Govinda Das Kaviraj, the famous Vaishnava poet. Chiranjeev's wife was Sunandan, and his father-in-law was Damodar Sain Kaviraj. Chiranjeev previously lived on the bank of the Ganges River in the village of Kurmanaga. Gauraganadish Deepika states that he was formerly Chandrika in Vrindavan. So, I just want to tell you the name of Narahari Sakar. It's written very closely here. Yes. Can't find it. Anyway, we can look it up and put it on the WhatsApp thread. Narihari Sakar is, I seem to remember, Madhumati, who was a gopi in serving Baladev. And Baladev one time in Shrikand was calling for wine. And Madhumati, she comes to this kund and she picks a clay pot full of water and takes it to, of honey. He was asking for honey. Madhu is honey. So Madhumati, that's her name. And she gives it to Nityananda, and that whole lake became filled with honey water. And today we can go there and take that water from that lake. So this is in Shrikand. So many of these places are very accessible today, and we can remember all these eternal associates and get their mercy by visiting these amazing Shripats and places of the birth of these great, great devotees, Nitya Siddha Parigras of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai, Go Premanandi. So important for us to be familiar with all these personalities, because they make up the backbone of our focus on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through their pastimes and any contribution of books that they make and the description of their ecstatic dancing in particular. They were all supportive of the Sankirtan movement. So they're all like that. They're all great kirtaniyas, practically all of them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Gau Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevacha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Ekadasi Brat Ki Jai, Sachinandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Mahaprabhu's Parikas Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevacha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.